Well, welcome everybody. We're just bringing you in for the waiting room just now. I would like to welcome you all to one of our final sessions of International Week as we welcome Mel Sherwood. Mel today is going to take us through how to be confident and professional in video, something that we probably all have been wanting to do a little bit more of, me especially. And it's something that I think is going to become more and more important as we go on, because it's quite clear that this is now the new normal. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass on to Mel. If I can ask you all just to keep your microphones off for the time being, there will be some interaction shortly. But Mel, please take it away.
Thank you. Well, hello. Now, there is no denying that the way that we consume content online is changing rapidly. And in fact, video is becoming more and more our preferred method. And then suddenly COVID hits and we are all thrust into the video spotlight and finding ourselves as video stars in meetings and various other opportunities. So the challenge then is, how do we ensure that we come across as confident, professional, and engaging on video, especially if we haven't had the benefit of doing that in the past? Now, I have a background as a performer and a presenter, so I have the good fortune to have learned some tools and tips along the way that help me feel more comfortable in front of a camera. I'd love to know how you feel about being on video, and Scott actually has a little poll that we're going to do this morning. So Scott, if you can just pop the poll up so that we can get people to vote on that. And this is about rating your confidence about being on video. So do you hate being on camera and would rather die than present on video? Do you do it but get nervous and you're not really that confident? Maybe you're okay at it, but there's room for improvement. Maybe you're pretty confident, but you'd love to step it up a level. And if you are so confident that you should be running the session, then I'd love to know that as well. So just pop in your response to that poll. How confident are you about being on video? So it looks like we've got about 10 responses, 11 responses, 13 responses. All right, so do you hate being on camera? And if you do hate being on camera, then that's pretty normal as well, in my experience. But of course, we are all thrust into the spotlight now. We do have to be on camera because of our situation where we're working from home and we're having meetings online. So let's have a look. Have we nearly got everyone has voted on their confidence? So we've got 15 out of 19. I'll give you about a couple of seconds just to finish that, and then Scott will get us to finish up that. This is anonymous, so it doesn't matter what you actually put in the voting there. All right, so let's end the polling, Scott, and have a look what we've got there. So most people are sort of sitting in the, and actually I can probably end the polling myself here. And if you have a look here, we've got most people saying they're okay, but there's room for improvement. Some people are pretty confident, but actually want to step it up a level. Fortunately, there's no one that's so confident they want to run the session, because I would welcome that if you were wanting to share your own tips as well. But yeah, we've got one person saying they really hate being on camera, and I see a lot of cameras are off. If you want to put your camera on today, I'd love to see you, because as you know, it's much easier when you're actually speaking to people rather than names on boxes or just photographs. So I see a few of you coming on screen now as well. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to just stop sharing that now. Now today, I'm going to share with you as many hints and tips as I possibly can in the time that we have together. And you're welcome to take some notes if you like. We do have, I've got an ebook, which is How to Be a Better Presenter in 5 Easy Steps. So that's a free ebook that you can download. Scott's going to put the link in the chat for you so that you can download that. And for anyone who does download that today, I'm going to send an additional checklist which covers all of the things that I'll be talking about today. So if you don't want to take any notes, I'll be sending you a checklist so that you can check back and make sure that you caught all of the points that we're covering today. So I have a background, obviously, as a performer, but I work as a pitch and presentation specialist. So I help entrepreneurs and business professionals to communicate with more confidence, credibility, and charisma. And as part of that, I have a 3-part formula. And if any of you have been involved in anything that I've run before, and I see some familiar faces on the session today, and I talk about 3 elements to what I call a pitch-tastic pitch or a presentastic presentation. And those 3 elements are preparation, practice, and passion. And so I'd like to talk about those 3 things today, but I'm going to deep dive into the preparation part. But let's firstly start backwards, the passion part, because that to me is one of the absolute essentials if you want to engage people either on video or face-to-face. So for me, speaking with passion never goes out of fashion. And if you want to remember that and really think about how you can find the enthusiasm for what you're speaking about, because if you're not interested or enthusiastic about what you're speaking about, you can't expect anyone else to be. So remember to include some passion and energy in what you're sharing with people when you're on video. The other thing is practice. Like anything, we do not get better at being on video without practicing. And it's the same with public speaking. We don't get better at it without practicing. So the more often you can actually get yourself in front of a video screen and practice speaking to it, the great thing is we all have mobile phones now and opportunities even to jump on Zoom and record it. And by practicing and then watching it back, you start to see how you're coming across, and you can make improvements based on your observations. Now, I'd love to know, hands up, either in the chat or physically, hands up if you get a little bit uncomfortable or you cringe a bit when you see yourself on video. Anyone? I certainly have done in the past, still do occasionally. I see Pete saying, yep. So yeah, well, it is a bit cringy to look at yourself, but it's one of the best tools for learning and improving. So I do encourage you to record yourself and look back and look at the opportunities for improvement. So that's 2 of the P's, the passion and the practice. But the main one is around preparation. And does anyone get a bit nervous if you have to be presenting on video? And sometimes if it's a meeting, it's not as bad, but if you're actually having to do something directly to camera, that can be a bit nerve-wracking. So I saw Brian's hand went up there. I think everybody gets a bit nervous. And in fact, if you weren't nervous, maybe that would be a concern, because nerves mean we care. But the great thing is, even though we get butterflies, we can get our butterflies to fly in formation. And one of the main ways to do that is to prepare. So more preparation equals fewer nerves, in my experience. So when we think about preparation, most often we think about preparing our content. What are we going to say? And that is absolutely crucial. But there are a number of other areas that we need to prepare as well in order to come across with more confidence and credibility. So let's just first start with the content though. And it's thinking about, well, knowing your stuff is the most important. If you know what you're talking about, then you're going to feel more confident. So make sure you know your stuff. But then think about, why are you there? Why is your audience or the other people there, whether this is a meeting or a presentation that you're delivering? Do they know why they're there? That's quite important as well. What's the objective for the meeting or the presentation? So being very, very clear on what the outcome is that you're looking for. And ideally, if you're delivering a talk or a presentation online, then you have a very clear call to action. In a meeting as well, what is the outcome? What are people expected to do at the end of that? So be really clear on your content and prepare effectively. It's just like you would do for any meeting, right? It just happens to be online. So knowing your stuff is key. I'm going to touch very, very briefly on slides. Now you'll note that I'm not using any slides today, and that's because I feel if you use slides, you can sometimes lose the engagement because people are actually looking at your slides and you might be a tiny little face up in the corner. And I feel that I feel more disconnected from people if I'm using slides. Doesn't mean I don't use slides and share my screen sometimes, but really important to think about how you want to come across. And if you want to keep engaging people, then sometimes slides can disengage people. If you are using them, they need to be really well designed. And so a great example of that, I watched the replay of Fraser Allen's session from Scottish International Week. So if you haven't seen that, do try and have a look at it, because he gave some really valuable content, great tips on marketing your business in amongst this pandemic and how you can stand out. But also his slides were really well designed. And when I say that, I mean they were simple, easy, not too much information. The thing is with slides, a lot of people put a lot of information and bullet points. You may have heard of the phrase death by PowerPoint, and that's because we use too many bullets. And when we use too many bullets, it means that people are reading the things that are on our slides. And guess what? We can't read and listen at the same time. So if you want people to listen to you, make sure they're not reading your slides. The other thing is our brains are more image processors than they are word processors. So you want to have images on your slides that support whatever it is that you're saying, that enhance the message. If your slides aren't going to enhance the audience's understanding of your message, don't use them. So think about that. There's one little tip that I have learned along the way with regard to slide design, and it's really helped me. I'm sure it will help you as well if you keep this in mind. And I learned this from a guy called Lee Jackson, who's a PowerPoint expert. He talks about making sure that your slides are more of a billboard than a document. And I've changed it slightly because I like alliteration. So when you're designing slides, think billboard, not brochure. So if you think about a brochure, has lots and lots of information, some, nice pictures, but lots and lots of words. That's not what we want. A brochure is something very different. And people sometimes design their slides as a handout, but they're two different things. So if you want people to be engaged when you're online, keep your slides really, really simple. So that's all I wanted to say about our the content part of it, because mostly you will know this. You know that you need to know your content. The better you know your content, the more confident and professional and engaging you can be. What else, though, do you need to prepare? Firstly, the environment. Where are you presenting from? Now, most of us at the moment, we're in our home office, and sometimes we don't have a home office. So you might be presenting from or in the meeting, and you're dialing in from your kitchen or your living room or out in the garden, or in the past it might have been coffee shops, and hopefully down the track it will be again. But yeah, so thinking about where you are, what's the background, and what kind of noise is around. Now, this is not only audible noise, but you need to make sure that you're in an environment that's quiet and that's not going to be distracted with lots of different noises, whether it's coffee machines going, or building works outside the window, or pets barking, or whatever. But also the visual noise. What's going on behind you? Is it really busy? Is it too much? Is it distracting from you? And if you're trying to engage people, you want to be the focus versus what's going on in your background. So I encourage you to think about what is going on in the background. If you can have a sort of simple, uncluttered background, that's ideal. If you want to use the settings, and we're on Zoom, so as it has a lot of different virtual backgrounds that you can try, or you can upload your own virtual background. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of virtual backgrounds, and the reason is because my hair just looks really weird on it. And so I tend to just use my office, but I've set it up so that I have a place that I can feel comfortable, and that it reflects me and who I am. This is where I work every day, so it's a bit of an insight to who I am. Be aware of what's going on behind. Have you got some washing drying, or is there some random poster from 10 years ago that's maybe not appropriate anymore. Just think about what's going on in your background. So making sure that is clear and uncluttered, and that you're in a space that's not too noisy. The other thing is lighting. How are you lit? Because obviously people want to see you. So the challenge with lighting sometimes in our home offices is that the lighting's not so brilliant. The best form of lighting, if you are presenting during the daytime, then find a window and get natural light. That's the best option for you, if you can have natural light on your face. If you have a window behind you, you can end up in shadow. So ideally facing a window is good. Recognizing that that's not always possible. The other thing is just some lamps in your office. I used to have sort of 2 lamps either side of my laptop that just gave a warm light. I have another kind of more professional light that I use now because I've recently moved, and the room that I'm in is a lot darker than my previous office space. So think about the lighting. It doesn't have to be fancy and any professional equipment, but just try it out. Use different lights and to see what's the most effective for you in the space that you're in. The other thing is there are some new settings that I've noticed recently on Zoom where you can actually boost the lighting or put a filter on that enhances the lighting. So think about that. Lighting also is has a big impact on how you look as well. So we know that photographs that are taken with professional lighting make us look pretty amazing. So if you're anything like me, and I'm a little bit vain, so I'm always looking at opportunities to improve how I look. And there's a setting in Zoom where you can go in and it says enhance my appearance. So you can actually enhance your appearance if you want to, if you're into the filters. I don't do it right up to 10, but I don't mind a little bit of enhancement. So that's an option as well. One day I actually was looking at myself and thought, oh, I better go in and enhance my appearance. And it was already enhanced. And that was really disappointing. Anyway, so there's that option if you want to have a look at that as well. But lighting is really key. The other thing, and this is one of the biggest mistakes I see with people presenting on video or attending video meetings and trying to engage people, is where you look. Now, the temptation, you will know, is to look at yourself. And if I look at myself on the screen right now, that I'm looking exactly at myself right now, but it doesn't feel like I'm looking at you anymore. The other thing is I want to look at other people, and so they're all over the screen, which is great. But actually, if you want to stay engaged with people, looking directly into the camera lens is the key. And so what I like to do is imagine that the person at the, think about the people at the other side of the camera lens. If you can't see people, it's more challenging, but that's when your imagination comes in. I like to imagine that I'm speaking to my favorite person. So that makes me stay engaged and interested and upbeat. So if you need a reminder, a good idea is to put an arrow, like a sticky note or something, on right near the lens of your camera and pointing directly onto it, or put a little smiley face near the lens of the camera. If you are using a phone, then the lens is not necessarily going to be directly in the center. So be aware of that. So if I'm using my phone, and here's my phone, if I want to look into the camera lens, I actually have to look into one corner, and that will make me look like I'm directly looking at you. So it's just being aware of where the lens is and making sure you speak directly into it. And you'll find that the more you can do that, and it's completely unnatural, I totally get that, very, very unnatural, but if you can get used to it, you'll find that you have much better engagement online when you do that. You'll obviously want to look at other people as well that you're speaking with, and that's fine. But for the majority of time, ideally look into the camera lens. Now, having said that, the other thing that we want to make sure of is that we are framed effectively. Now, we can reduce our credibility simply by how we frame it and where our camera is situated. So, for example, if my camera was moved back a bit like so, you can see that my head is lower in the screen. So somehow I've reduced my credibility. I don't have as much presence on the screen. So being aware of that. The other thing is if we've got our camera too far up that way, and if we're too high, you end up, it looks up your nose, which is not necessarily great for people to see. The other thing is sometimes people have it too high, so they're looking up. If it's too low also, when you're looking down into the screen, it can be, let's give this a try actually. I'm just going to do this and stand. But actually it can sometimes be a little bit intense for people, like you're looking down on people. So can you see the difference as to how I am now versus how I was when I was framed more effectively? So one of the a good way to measure it is if you, I'm just trying to get this back to where it was, but if you are looking at the line, so if you've got a wall, you can look at keeping the wall parallel with the edge of the screen, if that makes sense. And then that will mean that it's kind of directly in front of you. The other thing is, in terms of where your eye level is in the frame, you want it to be about 1/3 of the way down the screen. And then that will make sure, in most of the instances that we are using for our videos, is that, yeah, you'll come across, you'll have the right framing so that you are in the center, your eyes and your eye level is right, and you have that presence on screen that you're looking for to engage people. So I've noticed there's quite a few things coming up in the chat, which you may have seen me slightly distracted just then. So Scott, if there is anything in the chat that I need to be answering, if there's questions along the way, I'm happy to do that.
There's been a question come in from Karen Somerville. She says that she touches her face a lot while listening. How do we stop fidgeting?
Hi Karen. Oh, I see you. Yes, I see you're not on video. Can you share your video with us and just show us? Where has she gone? Oh, hello.
I need to unmute as well.
Yeah. So what's the challenge?
I notice when I'm on Zoom and there's lots of people and it's maybe a group conversation or a meeting or whatever, I tend to sit like this quite a lot and do a lot of this. How do I stop doing that?
I don't know. You probably just need to be aware of it. Do you do that? You probably do that in normal meetings.
Probably,
yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, we don't want to be completely unnatural on video either, do we? So, but one of the things is when we are on video, it's very, very intense. So there's this little box that we are in and there's no other distraction. Now, I noticed this recently because I started dating and I've been having Zoom dates. Now, if you go on a date to a cafe or a bar or something, there's always distractions. The waiter might come over or you know, you'll be looking at other things. But when you're on Zoom, you're here, you're there for the, you know, there's no escaping from that. So it can be quite intense. And it is really important to be aware of how you're coming across. One of the things I love to do though, Karen, is just to be super present. And one of the ways that I stop doing that is by looking directly into the lens. When I'm actually looking back or I'm looking at other people, or, you know, that's when I start to be a bit more, a bit less aware of how I'm coming across, if that makes sense.
Yeah, good.
So that helpful?
Yes, thank you. And my background's rubbish, that's why. My green screen at the moment's not working, so I've got the rubbish background, and yeah, that's why I turned my video off.
That's fine. And I think, to be fair, you know, if it's not a high stakes presentation and you're interacting with your colleagues and they know you, and, you know, it's not necessarily an issue. But sometimes we're meeting people for the first time on video, and it is quite important because first impressions count. So thinking about how you come across can be a very useful thing in order to make a great first impression. Right. Thanks. I'm just going to check that I've covered everything in terms of environment. So eye line, where you're looking, where you are in the frame, the sound, the lighting, yeah, and the settings in Zoom. Okay, so that's about our environment. And if you take this outside of video presenting, obviously we need to be aware of the environment that we present in anywhere. So we want to know, where the stage is, where the lectern is, where the audience is, how to get up the steps, all of those sorts of things. So we just have to be making sure that we take the time, and as part of our preparation, to get ourselves in the right position, the right lighting, and all the rest of it. The next thing, and this may not be something that you had considered, but it's about preparing our body. And I talk about this a lot when I deliver pitching and presentation skills workshops, because quite often we carry a lot of tension in our bodies, and that can impact on how we come across as well. So if you're someone who gets a bit nervous or you get a bit tense and you want to loosen that up, just literally do things like rolling your shoulders, shaking out the nervous energy, doing a bit of, walk around the block before you get into your online meeting can really help with the way that your energy comes across on screen. If you've had a really, really challenging day and you've gone from meeting to meeting to meeting, and we all know that Zoom fatigue is a real thing, then giving yourself an opportunity to just take a break, stand up, stretch, shake things out is going to re-energize you as well. The other thing is you can do some deeper breathing. So you fill your lungs with oxygen, and just make sure that you are breathing effectively, that you've got enough oxygen to make your brain sharper and make your body work effectively and all of that. The other thing with regard to our body, make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you've had something nourishing to eat. All of these things have an impact on how we come across on screen, even though we don't think about it. So those are the type of things that you can do to prepare your body. If I talk about this too in some of my workshops around the idea of power posing. And if any of you have come across Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, she talks about how making ourselves bigger, power posing, by doing either the victory pose or Wonder Woman pose with hands on hips, can actually change your body chemistry. So hold a power pose for 2 minutes, it increases your testosterone and reduces cortisol. So not only do you look more powerful and confident, but you feel it as well. Now, I have to say there's been some controversy around her research, but anecdotally, everyone I know who uses this technique has great benefits from it. And here's another tip, that if you can't, and if you're in the middle of a meeting or a presentation and you feel you want to feel more powerful or confident and you can't really do an actual power pose, I'll get you to try it just now. Wherever you are, put your hands beside you. Just allow your hands to hang beside you, and then turn your wrists forward. And you can do this either standing up or sitting down, but just literally hands beside you and turn your wrists forward. And what that tends to do is really open you up. For me, it has the effect of making me feel more open, energized, and engaged really in what I'm doing. So a little subtle version of the power pose is simply to turn your wrists forward. And if you present it all, you'll know that whole open body language is really key to helping engage your audience with your body. So remembering to just turn your wrist forwards, really simple technique. All right. The other thing I just wanted to mention about body is, and this is what I always do before I get onto stage or into a meeting or on video to present something, before I even get on camera, smile. And that is something about smiling that really lifts your energy, and it helps you to be more engaging and more present. So give yourself a smile. Even if I have, oh yes, here it is. So I have a little mirror by my desk, which was originally there as a feng shui kind of thing, to not worry about people walking up behind me with my desk to the door. But actually it's really helpful to, and I know a lot of salespeople do it as well. They'll have a little mirror on their desk where they can just, look into the mirror and give themselves a smile before they make a phone call. And it totally changes the way that you come across. Years and years ago, I used to work in a customer relations department, and we had some customer service training, and one of the things I've never forgotten was smile down the line. And so that whole energy around smiling has such an impact on how we come across. So when you're thinking about preparing your body, make sure you smile as well. All right, I'm going to move on to, then we've got two more things, and I'm just going to check the time is good. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is preparing your voice. Now, give us an indication, hands up in Zoom or on screen, if you sometimes get a bit of a croaky throat. If sometimes when you open your mouth, it goes, you have to keep clearing your throat, yeah? It's quite a common thing, and especially in the morning, you know, so, and that can have a massive impact on our credibility without people even realizing it. So here's an example. I used to deliver some training with a guy, and we co-delivered this session. Now, this guy was a brilliant trainer, really engaging, creative. His sessions were fabulous. And what he used to do is he would open the session in the morning and welcome everyone. And he'd say, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming along today. So today we're going to do a session on communication skills, or whatever it might be. Now, I'm exaggerating just a little bit for effect there, but what happened was that clearing of his throat made him sound less confident than he actually was. And all it was because he just had the frog in his throat in the morning. So we talked about that, and he changed his approach and did a little bit of singing in the car in the mornings and a few tongue twisters before he started the session. And the difference in how he came across was night and day. Not only was his voice clearer, as well as richer and freer and more expressive, but his voice actually was stronger right throughout the day. Now, I had a similar experience myself when I used to go to morning networking events, and I'm sure many of you have done that as well. And for me, I'm not necessarily a morning person. And this particular day, I kept hitting the snooze button until suddenly I realized if I did not get myself there, I was going to be incredibly late. And this particular event was an event where there's a little bit of interaction beforehand, a bit of informal chit chat, and then you have an opportunity to stand up and speak about your business for a minute, give your elevator pitch. And so I arrived after the informal chit chat, and just as the formal part was starting, and I was the fifth person to get up, and I stood up and opened my mouth to speak. And what came out was not my voice. It was squawky and croaky and whatever. And what I realized was that was the first time I'd opened my mouth to speak that day. Now, as a performer, I would never dream of going in front of an audience without warming up my voice. So why did I think that was appropriate to do in front of this audience, especially when my business is about helping people with their public speaking? Wasn't the best advertisement from my business that day. And so I realized that actually just doing a little vocal warm-up before I speak really, really helps. And I've realized that actually, because I work a lot on my own, and all of us do nowadays, we're in our home offices at the moment, most of us, we don't have as much opportunity to interact with people. And so even if I'm about to make a phone call or a video call, I'll do a little tiny vocal warm-up beforehand just to make sure that my voice comes across as clear and crisp and confident and credible. And it's as simple as doing a few tongue twisters, doing some humming or singing. The other thing, if you really want to improve your voice and improve your diction, where is it? A cork. Okay, now this might seem weird, but it's a really amazing technique to help to develop your articulation. And it's as simple as putting the cork in your mouth, like so, and then either reading a newspaper article or reading something out, and it makes your mouth work really hard. So as soon as you take the cork out, it's amazing. Your voice actually works really well, and it's your words seem to flow much easier. So I encourage you to give that little tip a try. I've got another tip for anyone who gets a little bit of a dry mouth. Hands up if you get a dry mouth, if you're feeling a bit nervous. Does anyone feel that sometimes? Yeah, it's a fairly common thing. So if you do get a dry mouth, a simple tip is to think about salt and vinegar crisps. Just try it now. Just try thinking about salt and vinegar crisps, eating salt and vinegar crisps, or sucking a lemon. And our minds are so powerful, in most instances, you'll find that you're starting to salivate a little bit. And I know there has been many times when I've been about to go on stage and I have a really dry mouth, and just the moment before I step on stage, I'm thinking salt and vinegar crisps. Okay, ready to go. So there's a little tip for you. I can see Duncan, you're like, The other thing with regard to helping your voice is actually waking up your face, and the tongue twisters will help with that. But even, and this is, we have to put the note out, safety notice with COVID and whatever about touching your faces, but actually massaging your face can be really helpful to start to get your face and mouth ready for speaking. Doing things like putting a ball of air in your mouth and moving it around, moving your tongue around inside your mouth, stretching it all out, pursing your lips and drawing big circles. And I know I look like an idiot now, but it really works. Drawing circles in the other way, drawing a figure 8 with your pursed lips is good. Simple things like, I see someone's got the emoji with the laughing emoji. I know. This is the stuff that you don't do when you're in front of the camera, unless you're me and it's your job. So things like just relaxing your lips or trilling your tongue. And actually the trilling of the tongue is the one that I do the most if I haven't got time to warm up my voice in any other way. That's what I'll do, is just, and it really starts to wake things up. So I feel like I can speak more clearly. The final thing I wanted to touch base on today is our mind, because obviously that has a massive impact on how we come across. So if you want to come across as more confident, professional, and engaging on video, you have to believe that you can. And so thinking about the self-talk, if you're someone who says, I hate video, I look terrible on screen, all of that sort of stuff is going to have an impact, and you're going to come across like that. Versus if you practice and you work at improving your skills and giving yourself some positive affirmations and good self-talk, it can really, really help change how you come across on screen. So thinking about catching any of those negative things. And the other thing is you can use visualization, which is a very powerful tool, has been used a lot in the sporting arena and in various other places, but just visualizing yourself having a successful outcome of a meeting or a presentation online can be very helpful to get your mindset right before you start. So let me check that I've covered. Oh, and knowing your stuff obviously is really important in terms of getting the mind right. I did talk before about more preparation equals fewer nerves. One final thing I wanted to mention in terms of getting your mind prepared is actually choosing how you show up. And one of the things that I have recently been working on is a new program about helping people to use the RED effect to be what I call more red. And RED is an acronym, so RED can be whatever you like it to be. Now, if you, in some instances, you might want to turn up and be riveting, engaging, and dynamic. You might want to come across as real, entertaining, and dazzling. So the red technique is a simple way to help you start to think about, well, what shade of red am I going to show up as? And then setting the intention to do that. If you set the intention to show up in a different way, then you may not have as great an effect. So think about how you want to show up, make a choice, and choose the shade of red that works for you. And my intention today before I showed up was to be riveting, engaging, and dynamic. So I hope that has come across in the session today. Remember that I have should be in the chat the link to download my ebook, How to Be a Better Presenter in 5 Easy Steps. And if you do that, I'll also send you a checklist so that you've got a note of everything that we've covered today as well. So remember those 3 things: preparation, not only of your content, but of also your body, your voice, your mind, and the environment that you're in. Practice, because we don't get better at anything without practicing. And passion, because passion never goes out of fashion. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. I would love to answer any questions if you have them. And Scott, I'm sure you're going to share with me if there's anything.
We do have a question, Mel. Yeah, this is from David. David Hood. He says it might sound a bit like a daft question, but staring into the camera can often feel a bit unnatural. He's wondering if you've got any advice to make this feel more natural. He suggests maybe putting a mannequin or a picture behind the camera to stare at.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I used to do it. I used to have a little, I mean, you can, yeah, mannequin behind the camera is a bit weird, maybe, because it might be too far away. So what I do, David, I just imagine that the lens is the eyes of the person that I'm speaking with. And I imagine I'm speaking with one person at a time. So just, and then if you need a reminder to look there, just a little arrow or a little smiley face. But for me, it's actually practice. And now it feels unnatural to not look into the lens of the camera. So practice, 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 practice. Hope that's helpful. Anything else, Scott?
Yeah, we've got another question from Karen. Do you have any screen reading apps for using when videoing yourself talking, i.e. for training?
So do you mean like an auto... Oh, I got totally blank on the word.
Auto cue.
Auto cue, that's it. Thank you, Brian. I don't know why. So when I was first delivering presentations and presenting training videos and that sort of thing as an actor, we used to have, they had a big machine called a Suzy Q, and it was actually operated by a person, and they followed your speech, and they sent the words up the screen at the pace that you spoke, which was really great. There are a number of apps out. I think it was Karen who asked that question. There are a number of apps. I don't have one that I recommend because I actually don't use them, although I am looking at using some for some upcoming training that I'm developing. There might be some other people on the call who would be able to give you some information on that. If not, I'll get some recommendations for you and I'll let you know.
I don't know if there's any questions as such. Get lots of positive feedback. Great tips, Mel, wonderful job. This is such a helpful seminar. I can confirm it's helpful. I've now popped something on top of the camera lens.
Ah, great.
I was just commenting on the fact that I did an interview before this where I looked the person in the eyes on the screen, which would have looked like I was looking off screen. So it's
yeah. So if I look at you, if I'm looking at you right now, Scott, that's me looking at you.
Yeah, it seems kind of
weird, isn't it? Yeah.
We've got another question in from Pete Thompson. When presenting over Teams, either PowerPoint or a demonstration of our system, I find it difficult when I can't see my audience. Do you have any advice on this?
Yeah, it is really difficult, and I'm with you on how difficult that is. And I imagine them. So, I mean, for this session, I've got everybody up, and you can change your screen, the way your screen looks. I've got in gallery view at the moment. So there are some people who can see them. Pete, one of the things that a lot of people do is have 2 screens. So on one screen, you'll have the people, and on the other screen, you'll have your PowerPoint presentation. It's part of the reason that I don't like to use PowerPoint when I'm presenting, but I appreciate that you need to do that to demo what you're offering. So a second screen, it can be really helpful, and some people even have a third screen, and they're managing the chat, and they're managing the people's on the screen, and then they're also managing the shared screen. But I think, yeah, that's probably the best way, is just to have a second screen if you really want to see the people.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that's it for questions coming in, Mel. More thank yous. We had great tips. David says, great presentation. I recommend you to anyone who wishes to improve their performance and impact on camera and off camera. As Mel mentioned at the top of the chat, I will put it again at the bottom, is the link for her free ebook if you download it, so you can get the follow-up tips. As mentioned, this session has been recorded, so the replay will go live this evening for anybody who wants to come back and catch anything that they missed, and for those of you who could only stay for a partial period of time. The recording of this session will be on the International Week website this evening. It'll be there for the next 8 weeks or so, and then it'll be on YouTube for everyone to see. So we'll be sure we share that with everybody. And one final question from James for you, Mel. Is it better to start with a Q&A rather than a straight to camera?
Depends on the circumstances, James. In what situation are you referring? Are you going to join me? Oh, he's not going to talk. He's just going to put in the chat.
No, I'll join you. Hi, Mel. How you doing?
Hi, good, James. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
So the question relates to...
Yeah, I've been asked to do I've signed up for an online training platform. I've been asked to do a recommendation for it. And on Tuesday, I just sat in front of a camera and it was just paralyzing. So we've agreed we'll do a bit of a Q&A as to the reasons why I've signed up for it.
So when you say paralyzing, as in it was uncomfortable?
It was uncomfortable for me and very difficult for me to get the message across. I'm not one of these people who sit there. I'm very much a reactive kind of person when it comes to communication rather than a straight get my message out. So so I feel more comfortable about that, and I kind of feel that using the style that makes me the most comfortable is going to be better for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, actually. And I mean, James, you've been in one of my training sessions. You know how interactive my sessions are. So for me to sit here and go, boom, here's a whole lot of information, that's not my natural style either. So I've had to obviously adapt for us being on video and delivering these types of sessions. If I'm delivering a keynote talk, it's obviously different because then it is me speaking, but I love the interaction. And so when you are using a technology like Zoom and other probably Zoom's got the most functionality, but actually I love the polling, I love the chat, I love breakout rooms, I love all of that sort of thing to help get people engaged. And so using different techniques like that can really help break it up rather than you just being the one to speak to camera, because it's not the easiest thing and it does take practice. So thanks for the question. Now, James, I think you were showing me something on screen that might have been helpful for Karen. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got a little a few stickies that point down towards my
your camera. I thought you would. It might have been in relation to the AutoCue app, but that's okay. I'll find something out. I'll find that out for Karen and get in touch.
It's just that, and if you see in the middle of the...
I see. Right, now I understand what you're showing. Great. Okay. So on that happy note, Scott, I assume we need to wrap it up. I just want to remind people those 3 points of preparation plus practice plus passion. That will help you to be confident, engaging and professional on video. So thank you very much for your time and participation today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.